Welcome to the Transgender Show. I'm your host, Emily. My guest is Roland. He's a philosophy major in college currently, a singer in an a cappella group, and a visual artist. There's plenty of stuff for us to mine there later. And for now, welcome to the show, Roland. Hi, Roland.
Hello. Hi
Welcome.
there. Thank you so much for having me.
Jumping into your
Right.
story, how did you choose your name?
So, actually, when I was a little kid, there was this as seen on TV movie that was on Nickelodeon, and they had Nathan Kress playing a kid named Roland. And I really liked that name, and it just like kind of stuck with me throughout the years. I always thought like I didn't know really why it stuck with me, but I was like, oh, maybe that's what I'll name my son or something. I really
Mm-hmm.
like that name. And when I realized I was trans, I was like Roland.
So you had this ready-made name from an early age. When did you realize that you were trans?
I was about 15.
And looking back to your childhood, what were some of the clues for you that once you realized you were trans, you could look back to and go like, "Oh, yeah, I see that."
So definitely from the time I was in preschool, I was playing with the boys, crushing on girls, roughhousing with with the other boys, and I was pretty non-conforming
Mm-hmm.
throughout elementary school and up until middle school. I was very you know I had a short hair, I had a
Mm-hmm.
boy's haircut, um, and preferred to wear clothes that were more masculine. Uh, and when I was playing like make believe games with my female friends, I always played the prince.
So did you get labeled tomboy then, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
And how did that term and that identity sit with you while you were kind of growing up and as you started to kind of understand what it really was, what was really behind it?
Well, I was picked on pretty relentlessly, honestly.
Hmm.
Like from the time I was in preschool through elementary school, people would call me boy girl and stuff like that.
Oh.
So, unfortunately, I didn't have very positive connotations surrounding it.
So how did you come to terms with the fact that you were trans and kind of what how did you accept that part of yourself?
So I actually came out when I went to college, and I uh, I met a group of trans people. We actually all lived together my freshman year. We had they put trans and gender nonconforming people on the same floor, and we called it queer floor, and it was a bunch of trans and non-binary people.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, so I felt really at home there, and I felt safe enough to come out.
Oh, that's wonderful. So, that's one of the questions we get to later is when did you first find community? And it seems like it was sort of ready made for you, at least once you
That's
got to
it.
college. What was that time like in between there, though? From you realize sophomore year, did you get to express any of that in another way other than sort of the quote unquote tomboy way that you had up until that point? Or was it not until college that you got to really explore that?
So I ended up coming out as a butch lesbian instead,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is funny because I like guys and binary people now too.
Okay.
Um, but uh, at the time, that was kind of what I thought was the safe route,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
And it was it was an easier way, I guess, to express myself.
So during that time in college, did you have anybody particular that you found on your queer floor that was a role model or a confidant that you could turn to for coming out as trans?
Definitely, my roommate my current roommate,
Oh, wow.
um, and best friend, was one of the first people that I came out to, and uh, he uses he, him, or they, them pronouns, and identifies as genderqueer,
Okay.
and at the time identified as a binary trans male.
Hmm.
So that was kind of the person that one night I just spilled everything to.
Was it soon after that that you came out as trans?
Yes, end of my freshman year of college.
Okay. Oh, I'm so proud. I'm so happy that like that was such a key gateway for you into yourself.
Absolutely.
So how did your conversations go for coming out? Who did you come out to first outside of this core group on this floor? And how did those conversations go?
I came out to my partner at the time, and that went really well. Um, because he'd suspected for a while. I came out to a couple of my childhood friends, and they were all very, very receptive. And that I kind of one of them said, nobody's surprised.
Okay.
So,
Good.
it went pretty well.
Nice. So you had enough of the breadcrumbs along your existence to kind of lead to this for most people anyways.
Yeah.
Then turning to family. How did that process go for you with your family?
So okay, I actually called my mom because I didn't want to do it in person.
Okay.
Um, and I was her only daughter, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have another sibling. I have an older brother. Um, and so she was pretty heartbroken. Uh, but we took some time. I saw her in person 3 weeks later, and so at the time when I come out to her on the phone, she said to me, "Try to understand that I really love having a daughter,"
Mm-hmm.
and that really hurt and stuck with me
Yeah.
because my mom and I have always been very close. Um, but 3 weeks, about 3 weeks after I came up to her, I saw her in person, and she apologized for saying that, and she said, "I know that you're the same kid, and I love you no matter what."
And how did other conversations go in your family with your older brother?
My older brother and I have always had kind of a typical brother brother relationship kind of thing.
Okay.
But I told him, and he said, "I kind of figured." And I said, "Oh yeah, how's that?" And he's like, "Well, you're hanging around all these trans people all the time, and you're, it, you roughhoused with me growing up, and he said, "I kind of figured, and I support you no matter what."
Mm.
So
Wonderful. So I guess that's the key takeaway from your coming out process is just be as much of the other gender as you can beforehand so that people can see it.
right, right.
Ah,
That's the secret.
if only we'd known our entire lives, right? I'm so glad
Right.
that it went that easy for you though. So on the flip side, I always love to ask the question, was there anybody in your life that you came out to or during this coming out process that supported you in a way that you weren't expecting?
Actually, my aunts on my mom's side, and recently my 94-year-old grandfather. Um, he had been for a while there for the last few years. He'd been avoiding like using names or pronouns with me because he didn't really know what to do. But now he's been reaching out to me. Uh, and using my male name and pronouns, and I'm pretty proud of that since he is so old, and
Hmm.
you know it took him a little while to come around, but he's been trying.
Getting into the more ethereal question, what does transition look like for you?
Well, for me at least, it I felt like it allowed me to stop playing a character because that's what I felt I was doing for a long time. It means being able to present myself the way that I feel comfortable and the way that I see myself on the inside. And,
Mm,
it's not all sunshine and roses because I personally struggle with a lot of internalized transphobia
okay.
towards myself. And then I'll take pictures of myself. I like taking pictures of myself now, you
Mm,
know, and that's it's like in my pre-transition photos I kind of posed, and now it's like you can see their genuine smiles in my photos. So I don't know.
mhm.
Transitioning it's a lot of things. It's good, it's bad, it's wonderful, it's hard.
Yeah. With that, understanding how you feel about the process in general, where would you say you are in your transition? Are you nearing the end? Are you midway through? Are you just getting started?
So I am about 4 years into my transition.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I have been on hormones for 3 of those years. Honestly, right now, things have pretty much finalized, I'm pretty sure, in terms of big changes with hormones.
Hmm.
Um, and so right now, I'm just kind of taking it slow, enjoying what I have, and not, not going forward with other things. For a while there, um, I was planning on getting top surgery, but I worked out enough and my chest is small enough that I don't really feel like I need it anymore.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
cause it, yeah, cause it basically just looks like I have pecs. So,
Mm,
um, and I like that. I decided I like that look better than a completely concave chest.
yeah. I'd love to dive in as much as you're willing to talk about what the physical transition has been like, because again, that's not a perspective we get a lot of times on the show. Um,
Absolutely.
I've heard that on testosterone, a lot of a lot of changes happen kind of fast, and you can quickly get to a
Very.
point where you're passing. For trans women, it takes about a year or two to get a lot of those kind of like
No.
good results, the results you're looking for again in the mirror. So what I'd like to kind of ask you about is what was sort of your timeline? Like in the first 6 months, you had this and this happen, and then after 3 years, you still were noticing things, changing here. What were some of those for you?
Okay, so first thing that came in was my mustache.
Okay.
Like 3 months in, I already had like a little baby stash
Wow.
going on. And ever since I could grow it, I've loved it. So, the rest of my facial hair kind of gets annoying. So, I just shaved it today. I was growing a little bit of a beard, but it was really annoying. So,
Hmm.
but the mustache always stays. Um, and let's see, I got really muscular really fast. Like my arm muscles, I had like big veins in my arms that I really liked.
Hmm.
Um, that was probably like 2 months on T.
Wow.
Um, yeah, it works really fast, and I was on a high dose. Um, and let's see, my voice started dropping within like the first 2 weeks, and
Holy crap. Wow.
yeah, a lot changed really fast. I think that now that I think the voice usually settles out about 2 years.
Okay.
So this is what I got. Um, and I'm a baritone. Um,
Nice. How long was it after being on testosterone? Did you get to a point where you felt like you were passable in a male identity that you identified with?
So I passed it around 3 months.
Wow.
I looked really, I looked young, but I
Hmm.
passed. And then around, I think when I hit 9 months, I looked like a guy my age.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was crazy. It went really fast, and I was documenting it. I actually have an account, an Instagram account that's specifically for like keeping track of my transition. I don't update it a lot now since not a lot is changing, but you can see the progress. Um, you can see the progress on that account. I actually have that account linked in the bio of my regular Instagram.
Oh, cool.
So if people want to go check that out.
It almost sounds like you had to take a photo every day to be able to document all the changes.
At first, that's kind of how it was.
Wow. So, what what hurdles did you run into in your transition, and how did you overcome those?
Um, so I was, had I had to wait a little while to get on testosterone.
Hmm.
Um, and that waiting period was really painful because I was so anxious. I will say that 6 months into my physical transition, my partner left me, and that was really tough
Mm.
because we'd been together for a long time. And uh, but it turns out it was for the better. So
Yeah.
let's see. I dealt my sophomore year of college. I dealt with somebody who was fetishizing me,
Mm.
like who was outing me to everybody, and just saying things like, "Oh, he's so handsome, you wouldn't even know he's trans," and stuff like that. Just like compliments that would like out me to a whole room of people I didn't even know.
Uh-huh. Just being a complete tool bag.
Yeah,
Wonderful. Oh, that's great. So
yeah.
sort of on the flip side of that coin, what were the fears that you had in your transition? Going into it and going through it, and how did you overcome those?
To be honest, I'm still working on overcoming some of those. Uh, but it's a day by day process. Um, you know, am I making the right choice? Am I going to end up regretting it? Am I ruining my body, as people
Mm-hmm.
say? Things like that. And also, how could this affect my health? Because, I don't know if testosterone could cause health problems. Fortunately for me, it hasn't. Um, but, there were things that were scary about committing to physical transition and social transition.
Yeah.
Who would I lose? Would I ruin opportunities for myself and so on? But it turns out I just opened up a lot of opportunities by transitioning, like being on this show and meeting, more trans individuals. You know,
Yeah.
my best friends. I met Leah. I've met a lot of great people since transitioning, and that's something I wouldn't ever take for granted.
Mm-hmm. What things do you do on a day-to-day basis or when you need to find validity in your identity? What do you do to be the most Roland for yourself?
I'll style my hair. I'll put on something that's uh, like a nice button up, or depending on the day, like today I put on like this muscle tank top, and I'll lift weights. I'll
Mm,
do some of my artwork. Doing things that are like self portraits and so on. It's helpful for me
nice.
so that I know that's me. You know.
Hmm. So given that, those fears that you had, have your goals shifted along your transition? Were there things that you kind of had as targets to begin with that you changed your mind on, or things that you were afraid of or sure that you would never get to that are now on the list of things you'd like to do?
Um. So for a long time, I thought I was going to get top surgery. I got the letters for it, and I had a consultation.
Hmm.
Um, but like I said earlier, now I'm at a point where, at this point in my life, I don't feel like it's necessary. Um,
Hmm.
it's best to avoid. I don't really want to deal with scarring and the healing process, and when I already have like a pretty pectoral chest.
Hmm.
Um, and I've thought about bottom surgery, but unfortunately for us trans guys, it's not a very developed surgery. It's not as good as surgeries that are available for trans women.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a funny thing. Like it's transition is good for both genders and it sucks for both genders. Like it takes us
Right.
for freaking ever and sometimes we don't get the results that we're looking for in going male to female. Female to male, like the testosterone works in 3 months. Still blowing my mind. But
That's what I always say. Like the surgeries for trans women are so great, and then the hormones for trans women are like, they take forever. And then for trans guys, surgery sucks, but our hormones are fantastic.
mhm. Yes.
Honestly, passing, it's very convenient for me.
Mhm.
Uh, and I think a lot of the time I feel like I'm safer, and I'm aware that I am, more privileged in that way than a lot of other trans folks.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just feel like, it shouldn't be a goal, but I won't lie and say it's not convenient.
So, what forms of dysphoria do you struggle with, or have you struggled with during your transition?
Whenever I get rid of my mustache, I'm dysphoric.
Wow.
So I always keep it. Um, and I've shaved it off like 3 times ever since I could grow it, and each time it went really bad. So I just don't touch it anymore. I have voice dysphoria. Sometimes I think my voice is too high, even though I know that it's not. Um, but it in my ear, sometimes to me it comes out sounding high,
Hmm.
and then I don't like it. Even though I know that it's deep. I had it pretty badly a few years ago, but that kind of subsided as I passed more because I just decided like, I didn't really I it turns out I didn't need to like pack or bind all of the time to feel like a man,
Hmm. Okay.
after I reached a certain point in my transition. But I used to have bad top and bottom dysphoria.
How
And
do you
they still come and go, but
really? Okay. How has transition affected your mental health?
um it's been good and it's been bad, there's, you know, feeling, you know, feeling like I'm a handsome guy feels awesome.
Hmm.
But then there's the internalized stuff that I deal with,
Hmm.
which, I don't think that's a result of transition. I think it's the result of the society we live in and being trans.
Yeah.
So overall, the physical changes have been really good for me. The social changes have been really good for me. Um, I just need to learn to cope with the little voice in my head,
Hmm.
that doubts and that, you know, insults me and tells me I look fake and stuff like that. I've talked to a lot of trans people about that, and they all kind of say, "Oh, we're right there with you, and we get it." And it's
Hmm.
just something that you know you learn to deal with over time. And not too long ago, I was having a hard time with the thoughts, and I was actually texting Leah, and I said, "Do you really see me as a man, like an actual guy, or does everybody just think I'm like, a joke or like a woman in a costume or something?" And she was like, "No, everyone sees you as a man." And I'm just like, that's still mind blowing to me, and it's been like 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah. That feeling of okay, you. you're in my circle, you support me or whatever, you're humoring
Right.
me. You're telling me that I'm
Exactly.
good enough because for whatever bizarre reason you feel like you have to.
Right. Yeah, no, I still think I'm like, "Oh, my family is humoring me," but really they think I'm crazy and all, all that kind of stuff. And
Hmm.
when I logically I know that's not true and I'm smiling because it's funny when I say it out loud, but in my head it's not funny.
Mm. So you sort of touched on it, but I'd like to see if there's anything else that's come of this. What have you been able to accomplish because of your transition?
Um, well, I actually wrote my senior thesis on um I created my own trans philosophy, what it is to have a mind and a body in transition. And that was really interesting and it was fun for me to write. And now I'll use that, for grad school. I submitted it to a conference
Hmm.
and that was really fun. I got to present it there.
Wow, cool.
Yeah. And my professor, who I'm very close with, was very happy with it. And he's been a big support through my whole transition. Um, because I've been with him since working with him since my freshman year,
Hmm.
and so he was very happy with the result and said that I took the paper in a direction that he didn't expect me to, and he was very pleased with it. So I was happy about that.
So, what is your favorite thing that you've learned on your journey?
Honestly, don't take yourself too seriously.
Hmm.
Like don't hold yourself to a certain standard because you're good enough as you are and you will get to a place where you feel like yourself. And even when you don't feel like yourself, you'll always come back to feeling that way.
Hmm.
So uh I feel like patience is something that I've learned
Hmm.
along the journey. And not necessarily with like my changes, which happen pretty rapidly, but patience with, you know, dysphoria subsiding and
Hmm.
patience with internalized transphobia. Just be patient with yourself.
And then our final question for this section, what advice do you have for young or closeted trans people out there?
I mean, I don't want to sound generic, but don't be afraid to be yourself because the people who count will stick by you and will accept you. And honestly, it just feels so much better to live authentically than to be in the closet. But also, don't rush yourself. Take your time, because it's a big life changing thing
Hmm.
and it has its ups and downs. Uh, but all around, it's a wonderful experience. And being trans isn't isn't wrong. It's just another way of being. It's not abnormal. It's just a part of your unique existence. So, you know, take your time, but at some point, really embrace it, and it can be a beautiful thing.
Roland, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your
Thank
story
you.
and everything about what you've been going through with your transition.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.